Great. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can pin all of you. Great. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
So I can only see the sides of your faces from where the camera is. I hope you can see me. My name is Lena Srivastava, and I really wish I could be there with you. I haven't been to Kampala in 3 years. It's been 3 years since I've been there, and I'm really missing it. But I'm very glad to be with you virtually. And it's an honor to be part of the Film and Cultural Week. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit. I'm going to be speaking for, I think you have me until 4:30, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be speaking, I'm going to make it shorter. I'm going to be speaking for probably around 25 minutes so we can actually have a conversation. And what we're talking about today is work that I've been doing for the last 17, 18 years on using storytelling, arts, and creativity to create social change through communities, through community leadership. And that means you all, right? So people who are creative storytellers, artists, innovators who are coming from communities who are making change in their own neighborhoods, cities, countries, the world. And so, can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So is there a delay? I can speak slower.
Yeah, I think you need to go a little bit slower.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So I'll just repeat what I said. So today we're speaking about community leadership for social change in your neighborhoods, in your cities, in your countries, in the world, using arts and storytelling. So I've been doing this work for about 17 or 18 years around the world. So I live in New York City, but I work in Latin America, in Central America, in East Africa, like Uganda and Rwanda, in South Africa. I've worked in Southern Europe, particularly with refugees in Italy and Greece. I've worked in Turkey. I've worked in India. I've worked all around the world talking to people who are community leaders, who are activists, who are filmmakers, who are artists, and who run NGOs, right? So all across the board for the last 17 or 18 years. And through that work, I've developed a few different theories about how we can grow our own leadership, community leadership, to make social change, particularly in issues like displacement, migration, climate change, which is huge, right? Climate change, inequality, and gender. So that's the work I've been doing. I run a company in New York called CL, which is the Creative Impact and Experience Lab. And what we do is we use storytelling anywhere from film to immersive media like virtual reality, to things like research and writing, so we use all the different forms of storytelling to look at these big issues like climate change, displacement, all of those things. So I'm going to tell you about two different theories first that you can use in your own work. And I'm going to take you through some case studies of my own work to sort of demonstrate what I'm talking about. And I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Share screen, host disabled participant. Can you, sorry, can you make me a host? Or can you enable screen share because it's not letting me share my screen?
Oh,
Okay,
okay, let me make sure it is done.
Hi, co-host.
While we're waiting, do you want to tell me your names? So when we get to the Q&A, I know who I'm talking to.
My name is Abasen. I'm producer, director, screenwriter, and actor.
Thank you.
Speaker. I'm Sula Kegaita, Kevin Gibson. I've been the president.
Thank you. Next.
Again. I'm repeating my name. I'm called Shagulan Abasen. I'm a writer, producer, actor, a cameraman, cinematographer, and a distributor. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sula Kegaita, aka Kevin Gibson, a good president, Writers Association.
Thank you.
Fahadi Badiru Kawadua, writer, director, and
Thank you.
My name is Baguma Matthew, and I'm an actor.
Thank you.
I am Blair Kono Wonders, and I'm an actor. I am Blair Kono, and I'm an actor.
Thank you. I can hear you.
My name is Sekamori Gonzaga, producer, director, script writer, and yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Grace Natkunda, a producer and a writer. Thank you.
I am Niran Smaya. I'm an actress in K. Jones films.
Thank you.
I am Joseph Mumpi Serubiri, an actor, writer, and cinematographer.
Thank you.
I am Akima Deris, a DPS student from Makere University.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Charles Mulekwa.
Thank you.
I'm Naigega Esareth from Makere University, a student. Thank you.
My name is Alice Musubika. I'm a writer.
Thank you.
I'm Nicholas
Mwejiche, an actor.
Thank you.
My name is Margaret Nachionga, actor and as writer.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen now, and Idris, if that doesn't work, please make sure that you WhatsApp me so that I can correct it. So I'm going to start sharing. I think I can do this. Share screen. Let's see. Hold. Okay. Do you see this? Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, let's see. Okay. So, so I have a couple of different theories about how those of us who work in storytelling and in creativity and the arts can make change across these social issues that we're confronting, especially after the pandemic, right? This past year has been extremely difficult. As you can see, I can't be with you because we're going to have to start rethinking the way we do our work. We're going to have to start rethinking the way we make change, and we're going to have to think of new stories. So when I think about using storytelling for social change, there are two frames, right, that we have, that there are two kinds of power that we as storytellers have in making social change. The first one is the power of narrative, which is the use of storytelling in catalyzing change. Like, how does a story drive change? How does it make it possible for people to start thinking differently and to mobilize to act on any particular social issue? Storytelling, there's a power inherent in that, right? Like, you've seen where people will watch your work or read your words and they'll think about things differently. You have that power. The second one is narrative power, which is the power that we all carry. So people talk about different forms of power, such as political power or financial power or institutional or bureaucratic power. But everybody in the world, no matter where you fall on the spectrum of access or the spectrum of access to political power or financial power, we all have the power of our own storytelling. We have our own stories, and there is a power in that. So we carry that. No one is powerless, right? We all have that. And so when you put those two concepts together, you have this very, very significant, right, driver of change. So my theory, number one, is that creative media and cultural expression have the power, when you combine the power of a story and the power of my own story, they have the power to contextualize human need and experience to catalyze change. Okay, so you all have that. So what does that allow you to do? Right? How can you use storytelling when you're a storyteller or an artist or a filmmaker? What are you doing? Number one is that you are setting a cultural stage for change. So often people think about social change only in the political realm, like politicians can do it, or only people who are in the NGO sector, right? Who are using data and numbers. Or who are doing direct service. But what you can do, what I can do, is that we set the stage, we tell the story, we tell everybody exactly what's happening and what needs to happen, what a community is telling us needs to happen, right? So you're setting the cultural stage for change. It's essential. Number two is that you are contextualizing the issues. Any social issue, from climate change to inequality, we need to understand what is the context. Like, we need to know what people are actually thinking. The other thing you can do is that you're shifting perception. You're shifting the way people think about something. That's your power as a storyteller. You get to help people realize something new. You can, number 4 is calls to action. When you tell a story correctly, you can get people to act in a different way. You can get them, you can inspire them. You can call them to act, okay? And then storytelling also, you can have, it's a really good way to both engage communities and foster their leadership, and then to create impact, right? That you can actually measure through your story. So you have all of these things just by telling stories and telling the right stories and recognizing that you have power in your story, you can do all these things. Okay. So for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working on a theory of and a practice of what is called transformational change leadership. And we tell the story, there are a number of stories, of the way people are building a future that is based on justice. It's based on justice and equality and equity and opportunity for everyone. And there's a theory about how we've developed this theory about how people actually catalyze full-scale transformation using storytelling. And it's just these, I'll give you the tool later so you can use this tool yourself in the way you think about engaging with communities, particularly communities who are most at risk or most in need. So if you're a social issue storyteller, this is a framework for you to think about how you start creating change within a community. And they're very simple. It's 7 characteristics of the way change is made. So number 1 is vision. You have to have vision for what needs to happen. It's you do or the community does. Number 2 is empathy, which is the ability to understand the lived experience of someone and also centering the lived experience of someone who is most in need, making sure that that is what drives the way you make decisions. Perseverance, which is just making sure that you're in it for the long haul, that change making through storytelling takes a really long time. And there's a lot of setbacks and failures and you have to keep persisting. Focusing on community, and we were talking about community leadership, that needs to be highlighted. Taking and understanding risk, making sure you're collaborating with your community, and then mobilizing, okay? So this is an overarching framework that I'll come back to, so explain it a little bit more at the end of the talk. But this is a framework for you to start thinking about the way you catalyze transformation, the way you make full-scale transformation happen. As storytellers, right, as artists, there's a very particular framework. There's a particular methodology for how we can do this. And it's called impact strategy, right? So it's how to understand how to use your story, how to tell your story, how to create it, how to distribute it, and how to use it to engage people. So impact strategies, all those things, it's not just telling the story. It's really thinking about once you've told the story, how do you then
Madam.
change? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. But you're so fast.
I'm so fast. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll slow down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So impact strategy, I'll repeat that. Impact strategy is the use of your story, all right? So if you are trying to make social change using your story, using your film, using your writing, using your artwork, it's not enough to just tell the story. You have to think about how to tell that story. Who needs to hear it? Who needs to partner with you, right? And often it's not the storyteller themselves who's doing this work. The storyteller is working with someone like me, right, who knows how to build impact strategy. But I'm going to show you a little of a video right now that, how do I do this? I'm going to show you a video that tells you about impact strategy and impact production. Give me 1 second, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Can you still see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Hindi po kami mamamatay sa sakit, kundi mamamatay kami sa gutom.
I think impact producing means a lot of things to a lot of different people. To me, it means the process of taking the film's core message and turning that into social and environmental change.
Impact production is a term coined recently to refer to film production projects with specific missions and messaging, and therefore it is aimed at affecting change by raising awareness, inspiring people or concerned parties into action, and for particular issues, it even aims and targets to influence policymakers.
Very first question that I asked, what are we trying to change? What is the change that we're hoping for? I'm trying to figure out what impact are we trying to have? Who are the audiences that need to be engaged? Who needs to see the video? What partners do we need? What impact would you like to see this film make in the world? Not every film needs to be seen by everyone, and that's okay. Some films just need to be seen by a niche audience because those people you've decided can actually use it to change the world. It's strategic, it's targeted, and it means that you can push your resources, which might be small, and that's okay, into a very strategic effort so that you can have more impact with the resources that you have. And then it's really about building partnerships and implementing the impact campaign.
Look around, find out, are there people of the same interest who have different talents that are needed in your team? There are like minds with like mission and visions that could be part of the team if you're on a low budget or a no budget.
Impact producers are the people who make it happen. They implement the plan. They're the ones who are doing strategic management. I'm looking at the strategy and the planning that it's going to take to get from one point to a better point for a community, for a project, for a campaign. It's someone who really understands the political, the social, the cultural context, the racial, gender, community that have to be respected, analyzed in order for a project to do well and to have the impact that everybody is hoping for.
An impact producer can be part of the filmmaking activity and team, either in all stages or in particular stages.
This is a really specialized role, but it's also a team sport. Make sure that you're all collaborative, you're all on the same page before you begin, and you've signed off on the strategy, and you have regular check-ins throughout the impact campaign's implementation. Documentary filmmaking isn't about creating a new movement. Often it's about tapping into a movement that already exists. Making sure that the people who are most affected by any particular social issue are the ones who are centered, their stories are centered, their voices are centered. And what that means is a lot of conversation. It means reading reports, doing original research about the political, the social, the economic, and the cultural context in which an issue is unfolding. I don't want an advocacy story. I need a human story. I need a story that's going to engage people and that's going to be artistically relevant and resonant.
Go out there, talk to people, learn about issues. Our subjects in the field, when we make stories, we learn a lot from them. and it helps us see things from the perspective of what is real to these people that we want, whose stories we want to tell.
You can team up together and create a new impact in the world that you didn't know was going to happen before.
Okay. So that's an overview of impact strategy and impact production. So to return to that, to summarize it, is that when you are making a film, when you're making a documentary, when you're making a theater piece, when you're making any artwork that you want to use for social change, there's a set of things that you can do. So that, because telling the story alone won't make change. Working deliberately and purposefully on creating a campaign or creating a strategy with audiences, with communities, with partners, that's what then makes change. Okay, so that video was a little bit of an overview of what impact strategy and impact production is. I'm going to tell you a couple of different projects that I've worked on over the last decade or so that will illuminate some of that, that will tell, basically tell you how I've done this work. And then I'll show you some of the tools that I use. So the first project is called Who is Diane Cristal? Documentary that was at Sundance 8 years ago in 2013. And it's about the US-Mexico border. And it's about migration. And what we were trying to do was we were trying to do a project that would contribute to the movement to stop border death, to stop the people who are crossing the border from Mexico to the United States, to stop them from dying. And also to start thinking about why people are leaving, what happens on the journey, and then what happens when they actually get to the United States. So it's a documentary that's available if you want to see it. And then we did a whole campaign around the issues of US, Mexico, and Central America migration. So there's a film, there's a book we did, there's an interactive website that exists. So if you go to whoisdianecristal.com, we created an impact report. There were ways to donate to people. There were ways to contact politicians and legislators. So we created this entire campaign that was both based in the web, on a website, and on an app that was a book, and through direct community engagement. And what I'll do is I will send people I'll send you the impact report so you can see exactly how we did it, how much it cost, how we put it together, what the impact was. But essentially what we did was we worked with community organizations in Central America, in Mexico, and the United States to put together an entire plan, an entire campaign around what the community itself, the community of migrants, what they needed and what they were asking for. So it was their leadership that we were following. So the entire campaign, the entire project was based on what the communities were telling us. Okay. So I'm going to show you the trailer for that film. Okay.
these people, as much as they are invisible in life, they're invisible in death. It's very hard to identify them. Nobody's out there searching for them.
Danny Crystal was definitely an atypical case.
Who's this person? We don't have any report of somebody who was missing that had those tattoos. We're trying to see if somebody knows this person and try to ID them.
En vida era considerado invisible, un ilegal. Ahora en la muerte es un misterio por resolver. Nunca podré entender la dimensión de los peligros que enfrento. Solo puedo tratar de recorrer sus pasos.
People sneaking across the border. To my mind, the problem is all economic. The American capitalist economy needs blue-collar labor.
For me, it's very frustrating knowing that somebody had a dream, but they ended up being a number, a statistic.
So the story is about one man that was found on the US side of the US-Mexico border with a tattoo on his chest that said Diane Cristal. And the mystery is, who is Diane Cristal? And that was the key to identifying him, because often it's very hard to identify the migrants who've died in the desert after they've crossed. And so that was our design question, you know, for the campaign. It's like, how do we prevent people from dying when they're crossing the border? And how do we use the narratives, use the story to then try to make change with the communities and with the community organizations to prevent this from happening across the board, anywhere from, you know, the root causes of migration to what's happening in the United States. And so this is a comprehensive, you know, sort of 360 campaign around this. The next project I'll tell you about is also, it's with refugees Syrian refugees in Turkey, called My City Istanbul. And it was about putting kids together, Syrian kids and Turkish kids together, to create virtual reality, a virtual reality story together. They didn't speak the same language often. So a lot of them weren't speaking Arabic or Turkish. So what we did is we put them together in a workshop over a week, and they created their own story about the city that they live in together. And they did it through VR, through virtual reality. And this was done with the US Embassy in Turkey. And we built this, so there wasn't an impact campaign, but it was about putting together to have the community themselves, the community of children who are Turkish refugees and Syrian refugees, putting them together to create their own artwork. So they were starting to develop their own leadership and their own community using shared storytelling. So there's an impact report about this that I can also send you. I'll send all these resources to the organizers, and you can read some of how we did this. Move past this. The third project I'll tell you about is called, it's a man named Josh Fox, who founded an organization called International WOW 20 years ago. And what he does is he has films around fracking and climate change. And the reason I wanted to tell you about this particular thing, I've worked with him as an impact strategist, but what he does is he takes his films once they're made, and he travels himself as the filmmaker and as the activist. He takes his films and travels from community to community, from neighborhood to neighborhood, talking about climate change and talking about something called fracking, which is the extraction of natural gas. And he brings musicians, he brings performers, he brings this whole event, and he goes with the film. So he'll show his film, And then he'll have a musical performance. He'll have all these things. And then he gets people in the audience, in the communities, to sign up for renewable energy. So he's working with organizations from town to town, from neighborhood to neighborhood. He's working with community-based organizations and community leaders to use his film and use local artists to get people to sign up for renewable energy. So it's direct contact, right? So like with Who is Diney Cristal, we did a lot of work on the web virtually. This is done community to community. So it's a really interesting way of using your film to get people to act in a particular way. And the last project I'll tell you about before we move to Q&A is called Priya Shakti, and this is in India. This is not a film. This is actually a comic book. It's a graphic novel that has augmented reality overlaid onto it. So you can download the comic book, but then you can also download an augmented reality app to see more content. The project started because of this really horrific rape that happened in New Delhi in India in 2012. And we created a superhero. We created a character named Priya, who is a superhero who uses love and song and community to fight against gender-based violence, and then to fight against other. Now she's she was born in 2014, so 7 years ago, and so to this day there are seven issues of this comic book, and she fights things like rape, gender-based, other forms of gender-based violence, but she's also now starting to talk about COVID. So there was a comic book that was released in December where Priya, the superhero, is talking about essential workers and masks and things like that. So I'll show you that film, but let me just show you the comic book. So I can't do this full screen, unfortunately, but you can take a look. This is, oh, can I? Yeah, I can, sorry. There it is. So this is the comic book, the original one from 2014. And you can download this. And you can take a look at the augmented reality. It's an app called Blipbar. But so she fights against gender-based violence. And it's a free download on the Priya Shakti website. So I'll show you a little bit I'll show you two little videos. We have a few more minutes. I won't show you this one, hold on. I'll show you the video of her, the latest one where she's talking about the masks and COVID. So hold on, let's see.
I wish we could go back in time, Ma. We used to go to the park together and play, but now I barely see you.
Don't be afraid. I am Priya, your friend, and this is Sahas. Why are you sad, Meena?
I miss my friends. I have no one to tell my feelings to.
Come on, let's go on a journey. Have you ever been on a flying tiger? Sometimes we have to be strong, so those who love us can also be strong.
That's my friend Leena's guide.
Let's say hi to your friend.
Hi. My ma. She works as a nurse here.
Your ma has sacrificed her time with you to take care of those who need help because of the virus. I am sure she misses you too, Meena. But right now, she is the hope these patients need.
Priya, we need to stand together and bring about the change we want to see.
That's how we can beat the virus.
Continue to wear a mask for your safety and mine.
So that's Priya. So we created her to become this woman superhero in India and talk about social issues. So really quickly, before we turn to Q&A, I just want to I want to return back to, impact strategy. We've talked very briefly, unfortunately, I'm sorry, about some of the different ways I've worked, right? So in film and interactive websites, in virtual reality, in direct community engagement, and also in comic books and augmented reality, right? So there are all these different ways that you can use your art form, your storytelling. It doesn't matter what art form you use. There's always going to be a way to use your art to grow leadership and to make change in your communities. And the way you do this is this process. Number one, you start with awareness of the issue, whatever issue you're talking about, whether it's gender-based violence or migration or climate change. You're starting with awareness. Films and documentaries and artworks and theater pieces, they don't stop at awareness. If you're trying to make social change, raising awareness is never enough. That's your first point, right? Then you engage people in the issue. You engage audiences and communities using storytelling, using a story universe that you're building. And then you ask them to commit to action, or your partners do, and that's when you make change, right? So there's this sort of like linear process, non-linear process really, but there's this process that you start with awareness, engage people, get them to commit to action, and only then is change made. So why is this important? It's important that we all tell stories together. Moving forward, especially after the pandemic, we need to be telling stories together. We need to be telling new stories together. We need to be telling stories of complex social issues, complexity, but they all have to be based on what we know. They have to be based on our narrative power. They have to be based on lived experience. So in order to make change, we need community-centered participation. We need to move beyond awareness, like I said, and we need platforms that are culturally appropriate. So make sure that the work that you're doing, if you're trying to use your art, make sure that it reaches the people that need to see it, right? Make sure that you know how to get it to them. So here are some tools that, again, I will send, I'll gather these tools and I'll send them to the organizers so you can have them. So one is that I built this strategic planning tool that allows you to create your campaign, basically. So if you have a film, you can use it to try to think through how you're going to make change with it. The next one is the video that I showed you. This is the Video for Change Impact Toolkit. This is a free resource that anyone can use. So if you're creating a video, a documentary, a film, this will help you map your relationships to your communities and help you think through how you build an impact campaign with or without a strategist. And then the last one is what I started with, which is the Transformational Change Leadership Toolkit. It's a resource that allows you to think through how you change your communities and how you change your societies. It's a sort of a really big framework, but storytellers can use this in order to think through how you're changing your world, basically. You can find me on Twitter if you need to ask me. I'm not very good with email, so I didn't put it here, but you can find me on Twitter. It's LKSRIV, and ask me anything you want after this. But now I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can do a Q&A or any question, ask I'll answer any questions you have. Stop share. There we go. Does that work? Ah, there we are. Good. That worked. So, so I know that went a little fast because we started late, and I want to make sure you're on time. But I think we have a few minutes for Q&A, right? Yeah. Okay. So, who has questions or comments? Like if you have a story about the way you've made change using your art, I'd love to hear it.
No, my question is, I've been hearing you talking only on climate concepts. You're talking about community stories.
Yeah.
And you've not talked about any other part of the script writing and the storytelling.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing, so I'm talking about community storytelling. I'm not talking about other script writing. Is that what you said? So the way we write, so when I work with documentary filmmaking, the script writing for a documentary is different, right? Because the way you make a documentary is that you observe, like you just create footage, and the script comes after the footage, right? So the documentary is backwards, to a certain extent. So when we're working with documentary, we let the story unfold, and then the script comes after. That's already then, and then when we do that, so for documentaries, you should make sure that you're independent. No one should influence the way you make your script for the documentary, but it should be informed by the community, right? So they shouldn't have any say. They don't have authority over the way you make your script. But if you're trying to make change with your documentary, it must be informed by community. Otherwise, you're not being respectful, right? Otherwise, it won't make the right kind of change. So the process for script writing for a documentary is footage first, filming first, then you shape it. And then if you're doing, social issue storytelling, you do a community consultation, right? So they can tell you what it is that is most necessary, right? So that's on documentary. So like with Who is Diane Cristal, that's how, we did things. Because I'm the impact strategist, not the filmmaker, I'm always looking at how best to use it. I don't influence the story, right? I let the story unfold. Like I need to know what is the truth of the story. I'm never going to influence the story because then it's not accurate. So that's like Who is Diane Cristal? That's documentary. On something like Priya Shakti, which is like a comic book and it has video elements, we write the script first, right? So the script and the writing comes first. Even so, once that's done, there's still community consultation, always, because we want to make sure that we are being respectful, resonant, like it's resonating with the community, that there's accuracy. And, for example, with something like gender-based violence or domestic violence, we have to be really careful to protect people's identity, all of those things. And so the script, even though it comes first, there's still community consultation, and then there's revisions. So it goes through multiple revisions after we've talked to the people, the community who's affected. In the case of Priya Shakti, the first one, the creators talked to a number of survivors of rape in India to make sure that this was going to help and that it wasn't going to hurt them. But then there was also consultation with NGOs, right? So there's always consultation with NGOs who are working on the issue, again, to make sure that we're being as accurate and as respectful and as pertinent as possible. But again, the story is the story, right? The story has to remain pure. meaning you don't want to tell an advocacy story. Number one, because it's boring. Like you've seen those advocacy films where it's like, it's so boring. No one wants to watch them. So that's not useful to me, right? As a strategist, as an advocate, I need the most human thing possible. So it needs to be pure and authentic, but there needs to be a community consultation. And then the third way is the community itself writes the script, right? So with like My City Istanbul, when we're working with those children, they wrote the script. You know, we guided it, right? Because they were 8 to 14 years old and they'd never written a script before. So we told them how to do it, but they wrote the script for their VR film. And then we guided that. So it was purely authentic, right? So those are the 3 ways that we work with scripts and writing.
Yeah, someone else has a question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
In the community I live in, in the community I'm living, the people I'm living with, they cannot allow you to get a story from them or face into your camera to get that documentary, except you give them something, and that thing is money. So we are facing a problem of finance, but we have so many stories to tell to the world and the communities, or also to our neighboring communities, but the problem is finance. Do you have any NGOs or any finance that can help us to put those stories to the world? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the way we finance things in the United States is slightly different. So the organizers, the American Film Showcase people, we asked them, and they're gathering a list of resources, particularly for Ugandan filmmakers and storytellers. So I think they're going to distribute that list. So there'll be a list of, I think, foundation sources and such that are working, especially with East and South African filmmakers and storytellers. But the way we do it in the United States is that we raise funds from foundations, right, to be able to tell these stories. The problem with US-based funds is that they don't allow you to pay a community member for their story, right? Because documentary comes out of, it originates from journalism. The ethics are that you're not supposed to pay someone for their story. Okay. But I understand, because I'm an advocate, right? I understand that people, number one, are often, are hurting for money. They need money, right? They need finance. They need financial support. And so if you're asking them to, oh, well, if you tell your story, then I can help you later, like that doesn't help them, right? So there are different ways to think about how you help people. So often what we've done is either we've created, sort of, in one case, there was one project where we were working with someone, we couldn't pay them directly for their participation, but we set up an investment fund in their, in their small business. It was not a lot of money. They didn't need a lot of money, but they were trying to get a business off the ground. So we talked to a funder and said, they need like, $700-800 US to start this, small, it was a small restaurant business. Like it was like a little tiny cafe. And so the funder said, sure, because they were a different kind of funder, and they gave us the money and we were able to invest in their business, and then they started their business, right? So there are different ways to do this that are still ethical, right? So you're not paying them for their story, you're identifying a need and you're helping them because you've seen that. It's hard to scale that because it's very, it's by luck almost sometimes that you find these kinds of things. But in general, like the way we've raised funds in the United States is there's a separate fund for the storytelling, right? For our time, to pay editors, to pay artists and things like that. So that's media funding. And then my job often, or other people's jobs, is to raise money for the social issue itself. And often it's not paying the participants. You're not paying them directly, but you're investing in a community center. You're investing in, you're doing that. So you're raising money for the good of the community. So that's the way we've often dealt with it. And, because you want to make sure that you are respecting the donors, that you are being ethical about the way you treat this. You don't want to pay someone for their story directly because then the story is corrupted, basically. But you want to make sure that you are not, you don't want to extract. Like there are too many, especially from the West, from Europe and the United States, there are too many people who come into a community and tell the story and then they leave and they run off and get their awards and nothing happens for the communities. I think that's unethical, right? Like, because that's extracting the story and the community owns that story. The person owns that story, right? So there are ways around it. But anyway, so we asked American Film Showcase, that's working with the Kampala Film Development Foundation, to put together a list of resources specifically for people in Uganda and the region. And so you can take a look at that list of resources.
Another question?
For me, mine is just a compliment for what you have taught us today. I feel very impacted to also do an impact video. What's it called? Impact film. Yeah, as Ugandans, we're going through a lot. And I think this platform can be helpful to tell our stories that are happening in our societies, the poverty that is mushrooming there, the political crisis, the kidnappings that are happening. I believe this impact film can be something substantial to tell the stories to the whole world. Thank you very much for what you have done for us, Miss Lina.
Thank you.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. And I like I said, I haven't been to Uganda in 3 years, unfortunately. I really want to come back, when there's no COVID, when we can travel. But I have to say, 3 years ago when I was there, I was very impressed with the level of filmmaking. Like the filmmaking community and the artists community is so vibrant. It's so amazing. So I'm really impressed with what you all have done and what you all are doing. Like I said, I'm going to send the organizers a set of tools. They're free tools for you all to use that you can use for when you think through how you use your storytelling. I will say that I think it's really important to be careful, to make sure that you are using, sort of secure platforms when you communicate about these things, that you're getting, the support that you need to make these films and to make these arts. There's another reason I forgot to tell you about. Is it almost okay? So really quickly, I'll tell you. There's an organization. So for any of you, is it done?
Technical problem.
Oh, there we go. So last thing I want to tell you is for
Go
anyone.
on. It's okay. It's clear. It's okay. It's
Here,
clear.
okay. So for any of you who's working in immersive media, if you're working in virtual reality, if you're working in augmented reality, if you're working in interactive web, if you're working in anything that's immersive, there's an organization called Electric South that is based out of Cape Town in South Africa. I sit on that board. They do amazing work supporting anyone from the African continent who is doing immersive media. So take a look at Electric South. Did you hear that?
Electric what, South?
Okay, it's called Electric South. It's an organization based out of Cape Town in South Africa, but they work with storytellers from all around, from the entire continent of Africa. Okay, if you're working in immersive or interactive media, right? So if you're doing VR, virtual reality, if you're doing augmented reality, if you're doing interactive web, if you're doing anything that is interactive or immersive, they run labs. So you can apply to the lab to build your project. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that I told you about that. I sit on their board and I love them. So that's another resource for you. Okay. Any other questions before? I think they want you to start moving to the next thing. So I'm sorry we didn't get to spend more time together. But is there any other questions?
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah.
Can I act out a documentary?
Say that one more time.
Yeah, can I act out a documentary? Like I just act it out in the community.
Can you act out a documentary? I'm having trouble. Yeah. I mean, so a document, yes, you can. You can do recreations within documentary. You can do fictional elements within a documentary, but ultimately a documentary is it's about what's happening, sort of in the real world, right? It's not fictional. There has to be, the bulk of the work has to be nonfiction. It has to be accurate, right? That doesn't mean you can act out a documentary. You can do recreations within a documentary. You can animate the whole thing. Like sometimes people animate an entire documentary, especially if you need to protect the community, right? So you don't see people's faces. You can, but you can also do sort of a documentary style fiction film, right? That is, deeply social issue. Like I've seen films that are fictional but look like documentary, right? So you just have to be clear to the audience what they're watching. Like that's it. There's an element of trust with the audience to make sure that when you're making an artwork, that people know exactly what it is, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, hybrid. Like, so there's a hybrid kind, so it's part fiction, part nonfiction. It's really important to make sure that you establish and maintain the trust with your audiences and with your communities. So yes, you can, but you have to be very, very clear about that. I mean, basically, so ultimately, when you're building community leadership using storytelling, this is the takeaway. This is all about relationships. It's all about trust, right? So you have to establish that no matter what you're using, whether it's documentary or film or theater or virtual reality or comic books like I showed you, ultimately, you are developing a relationship with your communities and your audiences and your partners that you as the storyteller, you as the person who's creating and using that story, it is based on trust and accuracy and truth, right? So that's the takeaway. There are different methodologies. I'm going to send you all the tools, but ultimately this is about you becoming a community leader yourself, and that is based on trust. Okay. I think we're ready for the next.
One more question.
Oh,
We
yeah.
are going.
Sorry, are we going to the next speaker or?
Okay, thank you so much for the workshop.
If you have other questions, just.
I had one more question. I wanted to clarify for me more about the drama.
Clarify for me what, sorry?
To clarify for me more about the drama.
No, sorry, the echo is terrible. Clarify for me more about, say that one more time.
Documentary drama.
Drama?
Drama, yeah.
So I don't work with drama at all. I mean, I don't do a lot of work with theater or drama or any of that. And I don't work with fiction films. So the next speaker is going to be talking about Hollywood and fiction films more. So you can save your questions for that. But if you have any more questions for me, just write them down. You can tweet them at me, or you can give it to the organizers and they'll send it to me and I'll answer them.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Oh, God bless you all. Thank you so much. Bye.
There's someone else.
Hello? Hello, Lina? Agenze? Yes, Bobete.
Yeah, I just made Babette the host. Hi.
Give me the sound.
Hi, everyone. It was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Hello, you're welcome. Hello.
Anti yalo muyo jibeera naye ate kati oli musiramu okwaziinako endi 10 yazinire Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
There's a lot of echo. Am I echoing to you?
Yes. Yes, you're live. This is the class. You're most welcome.
Thank you. Are we ready to begin?
Definitely, we are ready and excited.
Oh, we are. Okay, great. Okay, tell me if you can see this. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. All right, let's talk about how Hollywood works and the international markets work. Now, this is driven completely by, as you know, by fiction, by drama, by creative nonfiction. And now there's a huge market for short films. So let's discuss how it all works, okay? And then we're going to get into specifics in the next hour and a half of how you might enter and get trained and enter the whole business, as we call it. The industry is another term. And also, we're going to talk about the great importance that Hollywood and the industry worldwide, they put on you as the storyteller, learning your voice. What do you have to say? And do you have a command of the craft? So everybody, no matter who they are, no matter if their parents are very rich and they already have some great contacts within the business, maybe their father's even the head of a studio or their mother is a movie star, they still have to learn how to write a script, how to make a film, how to act. They still have to go to school and learn these things. Nobody gets into Hollywood without learning their craft and doing the time that it takes. And so let's just right now talk about the two major markets in the world. First of all, in the actual world market for TV, film, etc., there are over 185 countries, right? But there are actually only 10 major countries that really do business, import, export. And we break those down to North America, which is United States and Canada. So if you were to go to Cannes or some international festival, you would hear them talking about, well, this film made this much money in North America. They say it's about US and Canada because the theater chains where you actually go to see the movie, they are linked in the US and Canada, North and South. However, as we know, Hollywood dominates. Now, I could give you a lot of reasons why this is the case. I live in Hollywood. I actually live underneath the Hollywood sign. Hollywood has huge worldwide impact, as you know. But in the last 15 years, Hollywood storytelling has been all about the superhero, epic scale action, sci-fi, fantasy franchises, animation, and what we call these are world building franchises. For example, Star Wars. Star Wars began in 1977. George Lucas built this amazing world. We wanted to spend time inside his world. And because it was so well built and his characters were so well developed, the stories that can be created can go on and on and on. And here we are, almost 50 years in, we're still getting Star Wars. Same with any of the Marvel superhero, Dark Knight, Batman, all of those fantasies. You'll notice that almost all the Hollywood films are around minimally the budget, $200 million. Now, we'll get back to this in a second. The international market, however, is really led by about 10 countries. So if you go to Cannes, you're going to see, how did the film do North America? How did it do foreign, international? This is what they're talking about. Films that came out in the UK, United Kingdom, Great Britain, Wales, Scotland. This also includes Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And then it's in Europe, France, Germany, which would also include Belgium and Austria, Italy, Spain, etc., and now Eastern Europe. These typically are films that have all these countries, in order to compete with Hollywood, developed film boards, and they get money from the government, and they have very helpful tax schemes for investors. So let's say you have rich dentists or doctors who want a place to put their money and and get a break on their taxes. They can invest in movies in Europe in an interesting way. The thing is, these movies in Europe are made for low budgets, around $5 or $10 million, maybe at the most 15, but that is extreme. They're made on beautiful locations because you have lots of beautiful, interesting historic locations in Europe. And they have very well-developed actors. You know, over 35–40% of the actors who win Oscars are typically from England or Australia or Wales, from the United Kingdom. They have an incredible, deep legacy of acting and great training for acting, beautiful locations. Within this, you also have Scandinavia. You have Denmark, which has an amazing filmmaking community. So all of Europe, Scandinavia, these are major filmmaking hubs, and they have really come on in the last 15–20 years. As well, you have Japan. Now, what we're talking about are the import-export markets, where films are made in your own country, and you have an audience who loves your films because they like seeing their stories on screen. But then if you learn, and here's the big point I want to give you today, you must learn the international universal principles of storytelling. And many people don't. You will have a great career if you learn this. This is what I teach. So if you make your films have these universal principles of storytelling, they can cross over. That is the term. That means they cross over out of their own country and appeal to people in other countries. For example, comedy. Comedy is very difficult to cross over because what each culture laughs at may not be what the other culture, any other culture would laugh at. However, if you learn these principles, as the company Working Title did in London, they could export films like Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill, Love Actually. They made millions of dollars because they applied these universal principles. Hollywood, for example, we in Hollywood spend all of our time learning the universal principles of storytelling. That's why Hollywood dominates. The other thing is South Korea. South Korea has a very modern, hip culture. You have BTS coming from there, and you have the great filmmaker Bong Joon-ho, whose films are a mixture of all kinds of genres, comedy, drama, horror, all in one film. His films cross over because he understands the crossover appeal. You'll notice that in Japan and South Korea, and you have to subtitle these films. Audiences don't care. They're willing to go into these worlds because they've built wonderful, compelling worlds, and they apply these principles. Now, another major market you'll always hear about is China, but China doesn't export. There are very few films that ever leave China, partly because they don't apply themselves to the international principles of storytelling. They have great spectacle, especially their, Wong Kar-wai and Zhang Yimou. He's done these great films, House of the Red Lantern. You will get great costumes, great production design, huge spectacle battle scenes, but we cannot necessarily follow the dynamics of their love stories, their politics. It is foreign to us. So when I say universal principles of storytelling, there are ways to learn this, but you're not compromising your own storytelling. You just need to understand how to reach a wider audience. The other thing about China is censorship. They censor all of their movies. It has to go through a top government official. The reason why Hollywood is dominating now with superhero and spectacle films is because they can export that to China. China has a huge base of viewers who want escapism, sci-fi fantasy. They want the Marvel superhero. So for Hollywood, they make a lot of money going to China, And the stories don't need to be censored per se, although there has been some pushback on, for example, Star Wars Rebel Alliance, because, you know, the whole point of Star Wars is they're rebelling against a controlling regime. China doesn't necessarily like this, but Hollywood makes billions of dollars from the Chinese market. Hollywood storytellers who really work on the craft and want to make great movies, they don't try to go to China. It is for Hollywood. They make films that can export worldwide in order to make a lot of money. So there's two different things here. There are the kinds of films that you make to capture an audience on the first weekend and 2 or 3 weekends, the big sci-fi blockbusters. And then there are the worlds, for example. And then there are the character-driven, acting-driven stories. And those can only really be done for, you know, $10 or $5 million. So the final thing is, you'll hear that India has a huge market. India has, you know, 700 million people. And the films from India do not export. They have a certain filmmaking style, a storytelling style that they love. They've cultivated this since, you know, 50, 70 years. They have this term Bollywood, but it is super unique to India. Maybe one or, you know, a handful of films have come out of there, just a handful of filmmakers who are, there is a great one named Satya Rai who came out of the 50s and 60s. But basically India is its own entity. So the world that you are interested in is essentially the European market, not Hollywood. Hollywood, for example, because, okay, so I'll go to the next slide. In Hollywood, there are essentially 6 studios. Paramount, Disney, which just acquired Fox. So Fox is basically no longer a major studio. And Pixar is a part of Disney. So I'm just gonna, if you look at the order of this, it's Paramount, Disney, Warner Brothers, which, you know, of course has Dark Knight and a whole range of famous films, just recently Tenet. Then you have Sony, Universal, and MGM, which was just this week acquired by Amazon. These are the major studios. Now, why is that interesting? The studio, there are only 6. They have only enough money that they can borrow from the banks to make about, at the most, 6 to 10 films a year. That is films that cost them about $200 million each. Those are the big sci-fi blockbusters. You don't just make a film, you have to market it. So they have to spend about another $100 million marketing their film worldwide. So they put all their money and they develop and make these big sci-fi action films. However, they do have the need to acquire other films. So they go to the festivals. At Universal, they have a long-term relationship with Steven Spielberg. He makes 1 or 2 films. He's always making films. So right now, his films are either big blockbuster films, as you know, or character-driven. Right now, he's done a famous American musical, West Side Story, which will come out later this year. It was delayed because of COVID. There's always a film coming out from Steven Spielberg. But Universal is basically, like all the other studios, makes it money from the big world building films. So they still, however, each of the studios distribute, and this is a key word, they are distributors of about 100 or 150 films each a year. So where do they get these other films? They get them from Europe and from around the world. And where do they go to get them? They go to the festival markets. Now, before I get back to that, what has absolutely exploded during this time of COVID is, of course, streaming. Everybody's been stuck at home. And so all these studios built product, libraries of films. You know, you hear about MGM as the home where James Bond franchise comes from, and Rocky. We were able to, those of us sitting at home, to see these films, of course, on our TV sets at home or computers. So the streaming universe exploded during this past year. Now, over 185 countries have broadcast cable, they're streamers, but the dominant player is Netflix. And in the US now, we have a whole group of other players: Hulu, Disney Plus, Apple Plus, HBO Max, Peacock, which is NBC, Paramount, etc. Internationally, you will have the BBC, Sky, Arta in Europe, etc. I'm sure you have your streamers, you have your access. All of these streamers are developing their own content. It's called original content is the term. And they acquire movies from the studios and TV shows that were made at the studios. Okay. So this is where it relates to you. This is the pipeline. The festival markets. Now, the A tier, the top tier, where everybody wants to go, is Cannes, which is usually in May. This year it's in June because it's delayed through COVID, it didn't really happen last year, except the market happened online, but the actual festival where you could see the films, as we know, this whole past year has completely been a disruption to the business. But you look at the cycle of this, it's a year-long cycle for the markets. People go to Cannes in May. It's very glamorous, exciting, the red carpet. You get the premieres of Quentin Tarantino, Bong Joon-ho, etc. You see all the movie stars, Brad Pitt and Catherine Deneuve. All of that happens in May. But what's really more important to the industry is there's a market. This is where they acquire the new films and they also make deals for future films. They also have programs at Cannes for up and coming filmmakers, workshops. This is where you go to make connections. And this is where they show short films or the first time films. So Cannes is the major market in the international world. The next major market is Toronto, which happens in September. And typically Toronto has all the Hollywood movies and the classic auteur-driven films that come out in Europe and Hollywood. And those are the ones that will probably go through the awards circuit and will be nominated and win Oscars. This happens in September. Then we have what's called the American film market. This is in Los Angeles. It happens in November. It's more of a market. It's not a festival. You wouldn't buy a ticket to go there as an outsider to see a film. You would be able to see a film in Cannes and Toronto. And then, of course, there's Sundance in the United States in January in Park City. This is Robert Redford's baby, if you will. He started it 25 years ago as a little film to show independent filmmakers. He wanted to create a space separate from Hollywood where low budget beginning films could be discovered, because Hollywood was so dominating and only interested in these big franchises and big blockbuster films. And Robert Redford knew this because, you know, he's a movie star. But Robert Redford was concerned that the voices of artists and filmmakers had no place to be developed and no place to have their first time films seen. And so Sundance started and now has become a major cultural event every year, usually in January. It's very cold and you go up in the mountains in Utah And then there are lots of parties and networking, and you get to see, and there's a lot of energy around seeing documentaries, films, short films. A lot of people get their break from Sundance. For example, Ryan Coogler, who was a student at USC where I was teaching for years. He made his first film, Fruitvale Station. It won the top awards at Sundance. He got huge notice from that. And from that, he was able to pitch his film, Creed. And then he went on to do Black Panther. He got his break at Sundance. Same with Ava DuVernay. She was a breakout star with a very low budget film. I think her film was like $500,000. It was called Middle of Nowhere. She'd made a couple of other even smaller films, but finally at Sundance, and she said she applied like 6 years, didn't get in. Finally, her film Middle of Nowhere got in. She won. And from that, she got noticed to do some other projects, not big ones, but had the pedigree, as we say in the business, to be allowed, if you will, to direct Selma, which was a $20 million character-driven film about Martin Luther King. Now, point is, they had their breaks at Sundance. So Sundance is the place for up-and-coming artists who want to break through to have a chance for their work to be seen. They're also famous for their labs. They have labs in their beautiful mountain cottages. It's very competitive. It's very difficult to get accepted at Sundance in the Utah labs. However, they have a great program online, which I'll show you in a minute. And then getting back to Europe, you have the Berlinale in February, which is another market and which shows, you know, the best of the best happening in Europe typically, and some Hollywood films. There's also other festivals, like there's one in Copenhagen, but these are the major ones. And you notice they sort of follow a year cycle. Now, that is the top tier. It is very difficult to get a film in that market, but what you need to know is they have a short film market cycle that you can break into. And these places have great training workshops that you can break into. So we'll get back to that in a minute. Next, let's say you make a film, it does well, and we're in locally. You want to get it seen in the rest of the world. You want people to remember you as a filmmaker and as a writer and as an actor. And so there are prestige festivals that happen all over the world. There is BFI in London, Telluride in Colorado. Now, the place to go for animation is Annecy, France. Then there's South by Southwest in Texas, Copenhagen, Rotterdam, La Rochelle, Hot Docs, etc. In fact, there are hundreds of festivals worldwide now that we call the B tier. And you will see on posters what we call the laurels. You'll say, this film won Best Audience at this festival. This film was, you know, Critics' Choice at that festival. And you'll see these all over their posters, all over their websites. This means that the film was selected and seen by audiences in another setting. So for example, I just did a documentary 2 years ago. We premiered at Cannes, and then we also went to Tribeca in New York, BFI in London, but we played all over the world, Korea, Poland, New Zealand, Australia, all over the United States. This is a very important stage for independent and filmmakers who don't have a lot of money. This is how you get seen. This is where the critics come and they review your film, and you get reviews in the newspapers that matter, like New York Times or the Screen International or Variety or whatever is the prominent newspaper in your region. The journalists come to these festivals, they view your film, and then they write a critique. And then audiences who paid money to go to these festivals will also go, and they can vote as to whether your film should win any awards. And so what you're doing is building your audience and building a presence of your work around the world. Now, the critical thing here is the award cycle. Now, yes, you think, wow, it's a wonderful thing to win an award. Yes, the premier award in the business, there are two, is the Academy Awards, also known as the Oscars. This is typically in February or March. In Cannes, the premier award is called the Palme d'Or, the Golden Palm, and that's typically in May. These are the two primary major awards, and then the British Academy Awards, also known as the BAFTA, is usually 2 weeks before the Oscars. So this is what we call award season. Then you have the French Academy, which is called the Césars. It's also in February. Italy has the David, Spain, the Goya. But I would say the top four here would be Oscars, Palme d'Or, the BAFTA, Césars. Anyway, it's wonderful to get an award. It's wonderful to be nominated. But here's the point. When you go to these festivals, and you might have a short film, and short films win prestigious awards. Short films have this nomination ability. This gives you an extra layer of attention so that when you can take a meeting at the festival or later on, you can say, I was nominated, I was shortlisted for the Oscars, or my film won an Oscar. And from then on, you have credibility. From then on, people take you seriously. But also from then on, you can command more money. You can command more honor. So winning an award is extremely competitive and extremely important in the business. It's very hard. That's why everyone's always greatly astonished when they win an award and they're speechless and oh my. But the point is that if someone wins an Oscar, and these people are wealthy, they have wonderful lives, but to win an Oscar or a Palme d'Or is to win sort of history, glory. And from then on, no one can take that away from you. And so for people who seemingly have it all, that is the creme de la creme, as they say in French. But the business, think about this. This is called show business. The business is driven by this. It's a very important business tool. Okay, so let's move on here. I want to talk about what the audience wants to experience. The audience, and I heard the woman right before me speaking, saying you're developing a trust with your audience. You need to find for your stories characters that we want to fall in love with, that we love to see on the big screen. It's been said about a star that the reason, if a person has star quality, it's because you feel like you could be their best friend, but they also have sex appeal. Like, ooh, they're cool. If it's a female star, guys say, ooh, I think I could date her, because that person has a vulnerability and they're approachable. At the same time, you know, they would be courteous to your mother or your grandmother. So a star quality has a certain ability to make people feel vulnerably attractive. But what you see on the screen is transformation. The key point of all storytelling is watching the process by which people change. And what we're watching is whether they're becoming fully alive, their best selves, or whether they're becoming the living dead. This is why a lot of action movies are driven by, well, I mean, The Godfather, if you've seen that. We watch Michael Corleone, who has this great American dream to marry the beautiful Kay, perhaps become a senator, maybe even president of the United States, wholesome American dream, and it gives it all up to become the head of the Corleone family and thereby loses his soul. We watch him becoming the living dead. He becomes the greatest villain, the most cunning villain of them all. We are compelled by stories of people who give it all up for other reasons. So, and a lot of great TV series are about that. But we'll get to that in a second. So what I want to get to here is, now tell me if you can see this. And then I'm going to go back and talk about storytelling in a minute. But I want to talk about how you can break in. Well, first of all, let me just say right now, all right, I'm going to escape out of that. Stop the share. Oh, there you are. Hello. I have a list of your names here in front of me. And first of all, Irene Nawoga. Irene, are you there?
Irene has gone out, but she's around.
Okay, how about Nyanzi, Alex Nyanzi?
Oh, Alex Nyanzi.
He's not there? Okay, so then we have Mohammed Shaban Kaiwa. Am I saying this correctly?
Yeah.
So, Mohammed, you are into stunts, is that right?
Yeah.
And then Sula Kato or Keita Sulo? What is the?
Busulwa.
Okay, you're an actor?
Yeah.
And then we have Xavier Muwaga, you're an actor.
Yeah.
And then we have Dennis Sirankuma. All right, you're an actor?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have Andrew Nyombi, who's in sound.
Yeah, soundist, sound recordist.
Okay, and Frank Wangi is the director. Frank?
Yeah.
Is that Irene? Did she just sit down? Is that? We have Hajara Nabukinya.
Hajara now Kenya.
So you're an actor. Then we have Kabiru Lamek, or is that right? He's a cinematographer. And then I have Midad's son, Midad.
Yeah.
You're a director, right?
Yes.
And then we have Simuju Isima.
Yes.
That's in sound. And then Jonathan Kukule. Jonathan Kukule, what do you do?
Jonathan, I think Jonathan is out also.
Jonathan is out also.
He's out. Okay.
But he's a cinematographer.
Yeah, but he's a cinematographer.
Okay. Whose name did I not mention in this group? All right, so just quickly tell me your name and what you do, what your interest is.
My name is Tiagulan Abbas. I'm a producer, director, writer.
Okay. You're the full package, as we say. All right, who's next?
Sula Kegaita, an actor.
And concurrently serving as a Guild President Writers Association.
Okay. All right, and?
Fahadi Badiru Kawadua, a writer, a director, a producer.
Great. I love this because my view of it is we're all filmmakers. Yes, go ahead. And you?
I'm Nicholas Mwijiche, actor, TV presenter.
Great. Okay. All right.
My name is Baguma Matthew, and I'm an actor.
Okay. And this lovely woman on the left here, of my left, what's her name?
Atite Priska. I'm a dancer, actor and choreographer.
Okay. So how many of you who else, who hasn't spoken? Who hasn't? Okay, I'm sorry.
Blair Matthias Kono, and I'm an actor.
Brilliant. Okay. Anyone else in the group?
Margaret Kawesa, actor, writer.
Lovely. Okay. And you on the right there? Yes.
Yeah, I'm the host. I'm Lubega Idris. I'm the director of Kampala Film Development Foundation.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Lovely. How many of you have made short films or even long films or programs? One, two,
Yeah, those who have made short films.
three.
You said short films or feature?
Short films.
Short films.
Okay. All right. How many of you have been made feature films or longer form, as we say?
Yeah, around 3 of them, 4.
Okay. So right now you're breaking into the industry. Is the term for that is really that you are emerging. That's the term, emerging filmmakers, emerging storytelling, emerging talent. Okay. So I have some strong advice here for you, and then I want to get into the principles of storytelling. First of all, let's go back to screen sharing. Well, before I do that, I want to say that absolutely everybody who wants to make it in this industry has to go through some sort of training program. You have to learn some key concepts of what is the storytelling process, what the audience wants, how to craft a story. And then you also have to learn how to work on a set, how to work in production, and then what it takes to deliver a film. I've given you a very brief overview of what you may want to aspire to in the international markets. I would say that what you want to get to is you want to find international workshops by which you can learn storytelling. And even if you don't want to be a writer, to actually learn how to write a story and read a script. That is essential. Directors need that, producers need that, actors need that. Then there are workshops by which you can learn short film making process, and you can make your own short films. Now, people will say, well, I don't have the equipment, we don't have the possibilities. Well, there are a lot of films that are made now with smartphones, iPhones. You can edit on your computer with QuickTime, iMovie, Final Cut Pro. What's more important is that you show the process of understanding what makes a great story well told. We all innately respond to a great story. I'm sure you have your favorite stories, but here's the thing. The audience all over the world wants to go into worlds they would never get to go into, which is to say, your world. You know, here in America, we want to go to Europe, we want to go to Asia, we want to go to Africa. We'll never get to go there. We want the stories from those worlds. That's why people love sci-fi, fantasy, action. You know, those are fabulous worlds. So never forget the power of your world, the power of your place and your stories where you are. That is critical. And you live in an interesting world with great beauty, great intrigue, great contrasts of power structures. All of that are the foundations of storytelling, and you need to own that and make your own stories from where you are. And right now, there's a huge market and need for short films, well made, and you can get them online through Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, create your own YouTube channel. You can build your own audience's awareness of you, and you get used to delivering stories and you see if what works and what doesn't work. But having said that, I want to share with you some programs you might consider taking. Now you'll say, I don't have the money for this. We'll talk about where you get the money, okay? So, I'm gonna go here. All right. And now tell me if you already know this stuff, because I don't want to bore you. All right. Okay. How many of you know about Sundance's program? This is from Sundance, that is set actually in South Africa, but any African can go to this. They have it's called Realness, the Realness Institute. It's realness.institute. Realness African Screenwriters Residency. Just to give you an idea, you have to apply. There's a brochure. You go for a period of time, and all you have to have is an African passport. And when you go there, you are developing a screenplay. Now, you'd have to see what their next dates are for applying. The application fee is 30 euros. And once you get in, you have the support of the people at the Berlinale Talents Festival in Germany. And you would have relationships with all these European workshop people. For example, Yave is a European workshop. There are workshops in France, in Durban, Toronto, TIFF, which is in Tribeca in New York City, Locarno, Switzerland. Anyway, there are all these relationships you can get by working in the Realness Residency program. Now that's just screenwriting, but for example, they have a program by which they teach you episodic film development. Netflix sends a team of people to teach development for Netflix, etc. There's a creative producing program. So this is a great place to go. It is competitive. You would have to work, really focus your energies to get in, but that's something. Now, a friend of mine here in Hollywood used to run the Africa First program, which ran until 2014. Do any of you know about this program? Have you heard of it? Have you heard of the Africa First program? It came out of Focus Features. Focus Features is a major company that was set up in England. Anyway, Africa First was a program where they went all over Africa and found young filmmakers from a lot of different countries and gave them money to make short films. They, over a period of, I want to say 5-6 years, they had over 30 films made. And out of that group, about 5 or 6 African filmmakers won awards and now have careers in Hollywood and with major people. There's a woman filmmaker who's working with Viola Davis on a script project. There are many different projects that happened. The big thing I'm wanting, the program doesn't exist anymore, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because if you focus on developing a short film and developing your talent for a short film, and just looking at the room, you have you have at least 2 or 3 teams there who could make short films. You could start to get into the festivals. So let me show you some of the other opportunities for training. Now, because of COVID, everybody's gotten used to being at home and getting online workshops. So what's happened is an explosion of excellent training online. The best program I can offer you that anyone can go to, you don't have to worry about being accepted, and I really think you should consider this, is UCLA Extension. It's in Los Angeles, but I'm talking about online. And what you could do, let's just say you want to study, I'll show you different things here. Screenwriting at UCLA online. Anyone can apply. You just have to be able to pay the fee. You can learn feature film writing. Let's just put that down, feature film writing. And you can learn the craft, all right? And you can get a certificate. You can build your program, and they have the foundations. They offer it 4 times a year. Then you can build to the next level. There are 4 stages. You can go on from there. You can get money to help you get into these programs. For example, but you don't have to get a certificate if you don't want to. Just get the knowledge. That's what you want. You want to have a script. Notice they have an international student support program. And I mean, when the world opens up, you could also go to UCLA and take this program. You do not need to be accepted. All you need to do is apply and pay the money, and you can get support. But I just want to go back to, here, let's move this. Courses on entertainment. So now this is UCLA Extension. Because they're in UCLA, they have the best people who are working in the industry in television and film. Like they have a directing workshop on composition and movement. They can have making your first short film. They do a lot of these things online, and the cost begins at $699. Notice this says remote instruction, which means it's online. So now there's no excuse around the world to not get the education. You can get major education wherever you are. You can do this in many different ways, and I invite you to study the UCLA Extension program. The other one I want to tell you about is Sundance. Now, Sundance is the premier place to learn about independent filmmaking and developing your own voice. Their website has all these master classes that you can sign up for on every subject possible. Sound, post-production, the producer's role. They have the screenplay, documentary filmmaker, marketing. I mean, you have to, in some of these cases, some of these master classes are free or they're just one-off lectures. In some case, you have to pay a fee to join the Sundance Lab, a yearly fee. But look, you can do comedy writing, intensive writing, social activism through storytelling. In other words, you can get an education. You can learn from the best of the best. And finally, I want to take you to a course that could happen in, hold on. This is a program that could happen in Milan, in Italy. It's the International Screenwriting and Production Program. I teach there every year, as I teach in Hollywood and Pixar and in Boston. I asked my colleague there, it's an international school and it's in English. And I was telling him about all of you, and he said, we are for sure open to African students. This fee for the year is 9,500 euros, but if you apply early enough, you could get 50% reduction. And they have other things they can help you with. Now, I bring this up because if you're in Milan, in Italy, you know, what an elegant place to be. This is a master's degree you can get. It's in English, but you meet people from all over the world. And then you go to New York City and you get film production experience for short films. And you go to the festival markets. So you learn the whole business there. Now, I bring that up because there are ways to learn these programs. Now, you're saying, yeah, but all that requires money. Yes, it does. And what I would suggest is, as a beginning, I'm going to actually go here. I would suggest that you go to YouTube and you watch the best of the best short films, the ones that won the Oscars or were nominated. And I think it would inspire you to craft your own stories. There are hundreds of films on YouTube. There are many to learn from. Right now, I'd like to show just a couple of films briefly. I'm going to talk about some storytelling principles, and then I'll be open for questions. Okay. So here's a film that won the Oscar 2013. It's an American film, and it's called Inocentes. I'm just going to play it for a few minutes, and we can discuss it. Okay. Notice it's only 3 minutes long. Notice that is the first thing we look at when we're looking at a short film. People get very nervous. They don't want to, commit to a longer film. The short film market can tell a great story in very little time. So where do we begin? We start on the feet of a teenager, and it looks like every teenager's shoes, right?
Yeah. With your poetry, we are going to be splitting you guys up into 3 different groups. Every student is to present today. Every student.
Kids at my school don't know that I'm homeless. If people would find out, they'd probably make fun of me, especially at the school I'm going to right now. Most of the kids are like really rich with their iPods, touches and stuff. So it's pretty sucky that I can't tell my friends. It's like keeping a secret. My name's Inocente. I'm 15 years old and I live in San Diego, California. Good morning. I pretty much grew up homeless. I've never really had something to call home. Being homeless doesn't mean you wake up on the street every day. It means always moving between shelters, friends' houses, and apartments that you get evicted from. Nothing ever feels like home. Nobody wants to be homeless. It doesn't even come across anybody's mind. In 5 years, I'd like to be homeless. Nobody thinks about that. I've lived in about every shelter in San Diego. The Salvation Army, the YMCA, Cortez Hill, St. Vincent de Paul, the Rescue Mission. We slept here, me and my 3 little brothers. My mom stayed awake and watched that. Nobody came near us. I don't think children should have to wake up in a park and from that park go to school. That's not a childhood. I don't really have a childhood.
So the story is actually only 2 minutes and 45 seconds. The rest is credits. So what did you think of this story? Were you moved by it? Interested? Or just be honest, what did you think?
It's like the lady was narrating a story. That's what I've understood. When she was narrating it.
There's a bit of an echo. So did you like it? Were you moved or?
I like it because it had some good shots. Yeah.
Yes. How about you in the middle there on the front row? Guy next to you, he seems to want to say something. So yes, you.
Yeah.
I like the lady's story. The way she introduces it, then the images that are the other girls of Mary. Yeah, they keep me wanting to know more. What's about?
Yes.
For it really seems a sad story. So
Yeah.
I really wonder if she later became happy or she kept being sad. Besides her not wanting to be social, what causes it and how much did it affect her?
Yeah, all of those things, right? Yeah.
I have liked her story, but I was wondering, in this world, I thought you guys, or because I think she's an American, I thought that they do not starve or pass, or I thought every American is rich. But when I saw that video, I realized that every community has its own story.
Yes, yes, yes.
I really like to see more of it.
Yes. Okay. Did it?
One
yes.
more.
Someone else? Yes, you. Okay. Can you? Okay.
Honestly, I was bored.
Okay.
Get it.
Even though I told you it was a short film, it didn't capture your interest. So, okay, fair enough. All right, this is a documentary. It's meant to be a short insight into a world that you and I don't know. In America, I mean, this is happening right outside my door. We have an explosion of homeless people on the streets. People think, oh, America's so rich, land of opportunity. No, we have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people living in tents and have no place. They can't break into society anymore. We don't know their stories. They don't have TVs. We have no way of hearing who they are, but there are children growing up in that world. So it is what we call shocking to the viewer because you're taken into a world we would otherwise never see. And we hear it from the view of a little girl, and we want her to win her life. Your question, does she make it? What will happen to her? We are filled with compassion and empathy. What I'm wanting you to see is that film won the Oscar because it made us get attached to that little girl very quickly, and we were moved. We cared about her, and we learned about that world. Otherwise, we have no other way to learn about that world. We drive by it all the time. We look the other way because we don't know what to do. It's overwhelming. It's a big problem. So through a character, we got an attachment, an emotional attachment. Now, this is what I'm saying is that all stories, all communities have these stories. Now, I'm going to show you one other film. Maybe you've seen it already. I actually have two lined up here. If we have time, we could watch them. Let me see. Okay, now this film is, you'll notice, is 11 minutes long. It's actually about 10 minutes long. This was nominated for an Oscar and it's from Ireland, okay? So this is a fiction film. It was made for a very low budget in Ireland. So I want you to tell me what you think of it, okay?
We have a new boy with us today. Now, everybody, this is Joseph. Say hello.
You should sit beside Pamela. No, he shouldn't.
Hands in the air. Oh, not you, Joseph. You're fine. You can just go and sit over there. Good. Now, I'm sure we're all going to make Joseph feel very welcome. Hands down. Take out your maths matters.
Seth Quinn threw me book out the window. Did not, did so.
Seth Quinn, go down and get that book. Now, page 37.
Divided by 10. Divided by 9. 56 divided by 8 is equal to 36 divided by 6. 6. Last one here, 49 divided by 7.
Hey, do they know it's Christmas?
Christian Kelly. What? Are you annoying Joseph?
No.
Is he Joseph? I'm sure he isn't. Sit up straight so I can see you, Christian Kelly.
He was poking Joseph's back, miss.
Shut up.
He was.
Take off. No. Take it down.
Vicky fancies you. You're dead.
Hurry up now, we haven't got all day.
Excellent, boys. That is it for today. But remember to practice your psalms at home. Okay? Good day to you.
Good day, Livy, what's number 3?
Christian, what did I just say?
Don't know.
No talk. I wasn't asked to finish your sums. You finished, Joseph? Good lad. Now, I think we've all had plenty time. Pencils down. Down. Now, who's first? Seth Quinn.
Didn't have me hand up.
Come up now and do number 1 first, please.
Bet he gets it wrong.
Maybe we'll have a little less guff out of Seth for a while. Now, Hazel, why don't you show us all how to do number 1? Good girl.
Understand? And then you do that for tomorrow. Good day, bye-bye. So they believe in you, resting the whole game on your shoulders, eh?
I am a star, Father. In the last game, I scored 3 goals.
Yes, you're a star. You're a star.
Hey, Livy, you hungry? Do you want that? It's a good one. Kelly's got snot on his finger. On my finger. Off it goes.
there's nothing broken. You'll be grand.
It's so.
I'm sure it is.
I seen our knickers. What colour? No.
That's better. Hands down.
Yellow.
Oh, God, give me strength. Christian, sit down. Now, Joseph. Christian is no angel. Are you Christian?
I didn't do anything.
We do not pull fingers or whatever you just did to Christian here, in this classroom or anywhere else. Understood?
You're definitely dead. Come listen to that dirtbag. Dead. You're dead. Kelly, go on, punch him. Are you gonna fight or what? What is this?
Thank God. Queen, Christian Kelly. Hey! Not a squeak out of you. Just stand there. Open up page 47 of Totally Gaeilge. Questions 1 to 7. I am going to be right outside now and listening for any messing.
I didn't do anything.
Shut up, Christian, for Christ's sake. We need to sort this out, boys.
I didn't do Christian.
Seth, what happened?
Nothing.
It's a funny sort of nothing I saw. Well, Joseph, your turn. What happened? You're just great, lads. What am I going to do with you? Right, so. That's the way you want it.
Miss.
Yes, Hazel.
I seen it.
No, Hazel.
But I seen a Kristen push.
Back inside, Hazel.
Wait.
Hazel!
She's a bitch, Dad, and I was only telling her.
Look here. Hazel O'Hara.
What?
I heard what you just said, Hazel O'Hara.
It was a part of the conversation.
Don't you dare talk to me like that.
Like what?
Stand up.
Yeah, I'm standing.
With hands in the air then.
She thinks she's robbing a fucking bank. No.
No.
Okay. That film was made for the Film Board of Ireland gave the money to the filmmaker, Steph Green, a woman. It was made for just a few €1,000 and it won lots of awards, went all the way to the Oscars, and now she has a career, major career as a major TV director in Hollywood. So that was her passport, if you will. Can you tell me, what did you think of the film? Were you moved? Were you bored? What did you think?
Hello. Thank you. It was such a good story. The writer gave his time, and it's touching and entertaining. It was a good story.
It was a good story. And sometimes this what happened to Joseph, it is even in our schools this side. That when you reach in a school, when you are new, you find that they are abusing you. But what has helped Joseph, it's because he was silent. So even silence can help a person to overcome some things.
Yes, yes. And so this story is universal. Yes, go ahead.
I like the fact that it's showing us two societies. There is that has an African setting, then that has an outside one. Where we see the little boy being happier in that of Africa than that is foreign.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Anyone else?
This is my friend.
The film was quite interesting.
Oh, you liked it? Okay.
Yes, I've liked it this time. Very interesting, very captivating. Showing two worlds, the African boy from Africa, and then the school life in the white world, and the way he finally gets in with the white boys. Very rich storytelling.
Right.
Yeah, I think to me what I saw as what I looked at is how you managed, or how the director managed to shoot such a movie in an environment that is just a school, for example, with young children who are really very hard to manage. For example, having the script on their fingertips and giving me the reactions, the facials and the body language that I really like. That's what I was looking at. How did the director manage to do that to make sure that really it comes out so awesome the way it was?
Well, there's much we could say about the making of that
For
film.
me, I like the technical bit of it. The follies, the transition is, the sound, how the scene was transiting, and the comic bit of it, because it was a comic, and I see it was made for for the festival, because it cannot be easily understood by someone who is local. Thank you.
I'm not sure I understand that. You say it's good for a festival, but it's not meant for, please explain that again. I didn't understand that. You say it's good for a festival? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I was saying I've liked the technical bit of it. The foreign director was good. The sound, the transition, even the comic bit of the script. Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously, I wanted you to see this film because it's a film you could make if you just look at the budget alone. It is 2 locations. It's a classroom in Ireland. You'll notice the colors were all in sort of pink and yellow. And the classroom in Africa, the colors were sort of vivid blues and greens and some yellow. And the little boy, so you have two worlds. This is a key point, two worlds colliding, two classrooms. And then you have the story of the question of the film is, will this little boy survive in the Irish world? You know, it's a different world. It's the new boy. It's a universal story. We can all relate to it. And we want him to win his life. We watch him at beginning. We're worried about him. He's the new boy. Then we see that his father probably was killed. And then we see that he has qualities from his father. And we know by the end, he will win his life. Notice that only takes 10 minutes. This is a story these are the kinds of stories, not just that people who work on the script, you can work in teams and create short films. You can create a breakthrough for yourself and submit these films to festivals and take workshops in these festivals, particularly in Europe. You could build careers and then bring this back to your home country if that's what you want. I'll show you one more film. Maybe you've already seen this film. How many of you have seen, let's see where we're going. All right. All right, I'm gonna go out of here. And exit full screen. And how many of you have seen Alive in Joburg? Have you seen this?
No.
Okay. No? You have or you? No.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
No, we haven't.
All right. This is from South Africa, and it's 6 minutes, 25 seconds.
When I first landed, we noticed that they had these really fantastic biosuits. But then the apartheid government noticed that these aliens were moving into new areas. And this is when the government started to get tougher. This is when things started to get out of hand. I don't think they were captive labor. They were living in conditions that really were not good.
They make people uncomfortable. We don't know what they think, how do they think, what do they do, so they're gonna make us unsafe. Sometimes they do things that you don't think they'll do, and then we'll be in trouble.
My name is Constable Bongani Zulu, and I reside in Soweto. I've been in the force for 2.5 years so far.
In our country, we have an Afrikaans minority, very conservative, very rigid, and living on their fears. And the apartheid government was exploiting this. They were exploiting those fears so that anything that rises up against their institutions, they would just knock down.
Yeah, I've got a bulletproof vest. Yeah, you just protect the meat. People that can come and hijack the meat. Yeah, I'm carrying firearms.
You try and sleep at night, you hear this red sound hovering above your house. And sometimes the kids cannot even sleep. They cry, Daddy, Daddy, something. You go out, you see these strange things.
I'll tell you, the thing is with the ships, you're talking about vehicles that are sort of a kilometer in length, some of them. They are completely dilapidated, completely ruined. You've got like a 747 or you've got, a major commercial airliner trying to use the main route into Rand Airport or Lanseria Airport or to Johannesburg Airport. They've literally had to change some of the air routes to accommodate these illegal vehicles.
Ek dink hulle is nie goed nie want wat van hulle hier kom is dit al die rypere en die moord en die goede. Ek dink
And they had these cables that went into our ground and into our main supplies, like water and electricity. And these cables connected again with their ships. And like they were sucking out the water and the electricity.
Catch a free ride on a train on top of the train. When there's electric power, you can easily die there, but they don't. It's like a normal life.
It looked as if things are stabilized, but it's really impossible to tell. I just hope that we will be able to create a standard of living that will be equal and equitable for all in this country.
Okay, so there's really 5 minutes and 45 seconds. What did you think? Were you interested in the film? Did you like it?
Yeah, I have liked it just because it is consisting of realities, fiction, and creations. They are combined. That's why what I've liked it about.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Any other comments?
Just what I've seen there is that when some was they are there in the society, some people, the local people are the one who suffer. That's why some of them are saying, they were saying, even they don't want us here, so they are going to become refugees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Any other comments?
Who was bored by it? Come on, how's my friend who gets easily bored? What did he think?
He's saying something.
Yes.
The movie, that documentary is quite fascinating. How the director go to create aliens, bring robots into the real world. I think that was a high level of imagination, science fiction in Africa. That's right. I liked it.
Hey, yay! Finally. Whew. Okay, so how many of you have seen the film District 9? Did you see that film at all? It's a feature film. Okay. Alive in Joburg was a short film made by the filmmaker who actually has an ability to do special effects, as you could see. You know, he can have the hanging alien ships and he could, you know, toss the cars. This short film was seen by Peter Jackson in New Zealand. And he said, this is genius. I will support you to make a feature film on this subject. And so he worked with the filmmaker, developed the script. The film went on to be made, known as District 9, and it made over $200 million. And it was nominated for all the top awards, for Oscar, screenwriting, special effects, everything. The part of the brilliance of it was that it was a statement about apartheid. And it made us feel what it was like for an alien culture to not feel welcome and how they are treated by the dominant culture. Even if the dominant culture is the minority, and they say that in the film, even though the Afrikaans are the minority, they show both sides of the picture. So it was a science fiction film, sci-fi fantasy, as we call it, which had a major theme, and it went all over the world. But it started with a short film. So I'm bringing you these principles because I want you to see the power of learning storytelling. You can do a simple film of children in a classroom. You could do a character study of a young girl, as you saw here in America, the homeless girl. She's obviously from Mexico. We have a big problem in America with immigration right now, people coming from south of the border, Mexico, South America. And all of these films have a big theme, a big subject. And of course, New Boy is about the whole new world of North and South and how people are shifting as they immigrate. So there's a lot more we could say about this, but my big intent today is to open up to you the idea of you can make these kind of short films. You can all become together. You have the teams right there. I can see it right in front of you. And you could do this kind of work and get your films seen and into these festivals. Now, yes, it requires money. I would strongly suggest to the Kampala Film Board, I know they already know this, that certain sums of money be allocated for training and screenwriting, storytelling, short film production, but also money to help you apply to these festivals and even to travel to these festivals. That's what you need. If you're going to build an industry, you need that kind of support. When I started in the business, the United States, Hollywood, dominated the world by 2/3, which is to say, if we went to the markets, we got 2/3 of the budget. Our films were seen all over the world. Europe said, we cannot have this. Your culture is dominating our culture. You know, France, they were saying, our films have to be in French. We want our French stories told, same with England. So each of those countries got separately said, we're going to support the next generation of filmmakers. We're going to create money for training, and we're going to offer bursaries, which is to say monies for them to travel, to apply and travel to workshops and festivals and network and get seen. And they did that. And I was sent to teach in all of these foreign markets in Europe. And I would spend months in France and Germany and Scandinavia, Denmark, England, all over the world. In 20 years, the United States' dominance of the world market fell to 1/3, and Europe is now 2/3, because their stories became so good and they could export them. And the thing is now, what audiences long for, there's a market for sci-fi and fantasy and superheroes, and people like that. Certain age groups, particularly young men, like that. Animation is great for families and children. But audiences, adults, they want stories about people we can relate to. They want love stories. They want war stories. They want character-driven stories. These can only come from filmmakers like yourself. So we have about 5-10 minutes left. I want to just open it up to any questions, anything you want to talk about.
Okay, thank you, Babette. Let me ask anyone who has a question.
My question is, can I have a chance meeting you in America?
Sure. When the world opens up, or maybe I can come to you all and give you a workshop for a weekend or a week and help you develop your own stories. So.
Girls, ladies, any question? Yeah, maybe the question that I can ask for others is how do we kind of tap into the world funds that are out there to create kind of to be supporting the initiatives and creatives in here, because yes, in Uganda we have, I think, there's one chance of getting some grants from the government using UCC. UCC is Uganda Communications Commission. But however, it is very limited that annually they can only support around, I think around 10 with less than $2,000. So you see that surely it is very, very hard for a filmmaker or a producer to put something really that is very good. So we want that technique of how do we tap into the international funds to support the initiatives in here.
Well, I would say
another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have shown us to do our works and then we submit them to the festivals. But we should just, the festivals needs one winner. But all of us here, we are movie makers. Now, what if I win and this brother of mine does not? Where is he going to put his work? So I'm requesting we have a little market or a small market in our country. So if you can help us and create or come and buy our movies because we have them. Thank you.
Well, I think the whole point of getting a film made is, yes, the director, the writer, the cinematographer, the key talent team, you will get seen by the international market. You will get more opportunities to make films. And let's say that you get offered a chance to direct a short film or a longer film with more money. You can bring your friends along with you, your team with you. You want to work with the people that you know. J.J. Abrams always works with his team. All these famous people have their teams, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. You bring them along. But more importantly, you develop your craft in the international market. you can come back and build a team in Kampala that has more experience, has more ability to craft stories that people want locally, and you can start to build an industry. You have to think of a long term, 10 to 20 years out, that you're always building, because what people will want from you is that you're a storyteller and and they can trust you to tell good stories. And each one of your projects will be lasting. So you keep building one story after the other and building relationships and trust. So it's a long game. It's not just that you win one award and you make one success. It's that you are building on these relationships and this awareness of you as a talent, and your talent and skills have to constantly be developed and grow. So you start with a film that you can make locally that could cross over and attract people in the foreign markets. Go and make those contacts, make them see you. And then I see that there is a low battery. Can you no longer see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can build your business. But the most important thing now is to build yourselves, each of you, as a storyteller. Each one of you be a storyteller and build a team and trust in yourselves to make a great film. And I know you can. I've seen it happen all over the world. Are you still there?
Yes, we are there.
Idris, I can see your name. There you are. Hello, hello. Why don't we have one more question? I think your computer is losing battery, but let's have one more question and then I guess we should finish.
Your friend.
My friend. Yes.
A very simple question. What are the odds of an actor making it to Hollywood, especially from now Africa here?
I mean, what about Daniel Kaluuya? He's from Uganda, right? You just have to believe in yourself. And you know what? Hollywood is a general term. You shouldn't just think of it as Hollywood. You should think of it as the industry with a capital I. You could probably have a far greater chance of making it in the United Kingdom, in London first. And you think of Idris Elba, you think of Daniel Kaluuya, you think of David Oyelowo. These are actors from Africa who started there. They did the work of learning how to be actors. They went on the stage, they worked in TV, Chiwetel Ejiofor, all these, and they just believed in themselves. They never gave up. The number one trait is to never give up and learn your craft, show up, be professional, make them want to have you on the set, get along with everyone, and develop your persona. You are unique. Everyone wants a unique, interesting actor you fall in love with on the screen. You just have to believe that you're the person for it and go for it.
That's great.
Well, I hope maybe I can see you all someday. I'd love to see you. It's been a great class. It's all gone by so fast. So perhaps we can do this another time.
I think so.
I wish you all the best. Would be great to meet.
Okay, it was also great to have you as our facilitator on behalf of Kampala Film Development Foundation. I would like to thank you for your time and the brains that you put behind all this, and also to the class still. It's been really very interesting to have you.
Well, I've had a great time. I wish you all the best.
Good enough that I have your numbers. The guy is of the Screen Actors Guild here, and I think definitely we shall have to meet.
Okay, yes, I would love that. All right.
Perfect.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right.